Hey guys, tonight we descend into a place cloaked in moonlight and murmurs, where visions glide through the minds of blind children and history refuses to stay buried. You're about to step into Brighthollow again, but this time, prophecy waits. Dreams crawl like mist through the cobbled streets, and one child knows who will die next, because he saw it somehow in the dark behind his sightless eyes. And just so you're prepared, you probably won't survive this one either. Seriously, if prophetic kids creep you out, maybe sit this one out, or at least keep a nightlight handy. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You hesitate, then knock. A voice from within, cracked, female, says only, "He's outside." Always is. So you turn, scan the alley, and there, sitting on a rain barrel with legs too thin for the cold, is a boy. No more than 7. He's smiling. No pupils. No sockets. Just smooth, pale skin where his eyes should be. "You're late," he says, and his voice is surprisingly clear. "I already told the beetle under that brick that you'd be here by the 3rd bell." You look down. A beetle does, in fact, crawl past your boot. "I don't suppose," the child continues, "you're the one who keeps hearing bells before someone dies?" You freeze. He nods, though how he senses your reaction, you can't tell. "They think I'm cursed," he says cheerily. "They're wrong, of course. I'm just connected, like mold. I grow where the wet thoughts gather. Sleep deprivation? Bad fish?" You try to reason with yourself, but something about his presence peels logic away like old paint. "You know what a charnel house smells like?" he asks, suddenly switching gears. You don't answer. "It's not rot. Not really. It's the fear soaked into the walls. The monks used to think it summoned spirits. They weren't wrong." He tilts his head. "You carry 3 deaths on your coat." You check your coat instinctively. Nothing there, but it feels heavy now. Back to the boy. "I had a dream yesterday," he says softly, "of a woman falling into the well near Candle Cross. She drowned because the frogs told her to jump." He shrugs. "She died today. Frogs didn't lie. And you remember? This morning, the town crier shouted something about a milk vendor found dead at Candle Cross. Slipped. Drowned." The child lifts a hand as though reaching toward your face, but his fingers stop just short. "You dream too," he says. "But yours aren't prophetic. Yours are reminders." That should be impossible, and yet you feel it. He knows. He hops off the barrel and starts walking. "Come," he says. "I'll show you where tomorrow's death is hiding. It's not far." You follow. What else can you do? You pass a small shrine carved into a brick wall, a forgotten saint with a cracked halo. People still leave offerings, bones, candle stubs, a smear of ash. The child pauses, runs a hand over the saint's name. You glimpse it. Saint Hilarion, a name struck from church history after the Reformation. One of those fringe saint scholars still argue about. Some claimed Hilarion healed blindness. Others said he gave it to save souls. "Do you know what they did to him?" the child asks. "They buried him alive beneath a monastery. Said it was mercy." You're about to ask something, anything, but the child's gone quiet. His bare feet pad forward over broken stones and dried leaves. Eventually, he stops at an alley behind an abandoned bakery. "Tomorrow," he says. "This is where she'll die. The one with the candle tattoo." Your mouth goes dry. A barmaid at the Chimera Inn has that tattoo. "But don't worry," the child adds. "She'll die smiling. Some deaths are kind." He turns back toward you, unreadable. "And some," he whispers, "are just necessary." The boy walks without hesitation, his bare feet slapping against the wet stones like he's memorized every crack in the city. You keep pace a few steps behind, torn between dread and curiosity. He doesn't talk for a while, just listens. Sometimes he tilts his head sharply as though catching whispers carried by the fog. You glance back. Brighthollow sleeps uneasily tonight. Somewhere, a bell tolls once. Not a church bell, but one of the rusted signal bells above the watchgate, usually rung for fire, or worse. The boy speaks up casually. That one's for the catacombs. Something woke up. You chuckle nervously. Is that a joke? He smiles, lips barely twitching. You'll know soon. You're halfway between laughing and leaving when you finally ask, "What happened to your eyes?" He stops and turns to face you. "I was born without them," he says. "Or so they tell me, but I see dreams just fine." It's not pity he wants, not even understanding. The boy speaks as though the world gave him a choice between regular vision and a darker kind, and he picked the one that burns. "I used to scream a lot," he admits. "At night, they thought I was possessed. So they tied me up and let the priests look inside my mouth. They didn't find demons, just teeth." A pause, and a few words I didn't know how to pronounce yet. Back to the boy. "After the third death," he continues, "they stopped feeding me. Thought starving the visions would make them go away." His tone is disturbingly neutral. "Didn't work, just made them louder." You finally ask his name. He blinks. "I don't remember. Names aren't important to dreams, but if you need something to call me, try Echo." It's a strange choice, but fitting. Echo doesn't lead you to tomorrow's death this time. Instead, he brings you to a chapel. Small, crumbling, once painted white, but now the color of old teeth. Ivy climbs its bones. No one tends to this place anymore. The altar inside is warped by moisture. The statue of the Virgin leans slightly to one side, her face worn blank by time. "This is where I had the first dream," Echo says, sitting cross-legged on the cold floor. "Before the butcher died." You sit, too, cautious. Echo's voice softens as he begins to speak, almost like he's slipping into a trance. "I saw him walking home, his apron still bloody. He always took the alley near the dye pit, shorter path. But this time, the shadows were wrong. They moved too fast, and someone called his name in a voice that sounded like his wife's, but wasn't." You listen, feeling your skin crawl. "He turned," Echo says, and then silence. Just the hiss of steam. The dream ended before I saw his body. You know the story. The butcher was found face down in the dye pit, lungs full of crimson liquid, hands clawing at his throat. Locals claimed he slipped. But you're not so sure now. Echo pulls his knees to his chest. "Second dream," he murmurs, "was worse. The girl with the broken fiddle. She played in the square for coins. I dreamed she walked into the water near the docks, arms raised. No one stopped her." You nod. You remember her too, found floating, face turned to the sky. No one saw her go in. No one could explain why. "Then came the one last week," Echo whispers. "The blacksmith. He made toys from scrap metal. Nice man. But in the dream, his workshop caught fire. He couldn't escape. Too much smoke. I tried to scream for him, but the dream locked my throat." Pause. "He burned yesterday." You stare at the boy. No flinching. No hesitation. He's just recounting facts, like a historian with too much dust on his soul. You ask Echo if he ever dreams of good things. He laughs. "Once, I dreamed I had eyes. Didn't like it. Too much color. Too many faces." The laugh vanishes as quickly as it came. You can't help yourself. "Do you know why you have these dreams?" Echo's smile returns, this time thinner. "Because someone buried the truth, and dreams don't like being buried." It's nearly dawn when you finally rise. The fog has lifted slightly, and Echo's skin gleams silver in the faint light. He turns toward you as though sensing your movement. "You're going to try and find the name," he says. "The one they erased." You pause. "What name?" "The one that binds me to the church," Echo answers. The name they're afraid you'll speak aloud. He tilts his head. They're watching you now. They watched me too. Before I stopped being useful. The street outside is quiet. Even the rats have gone still. Echo whispers one last thing before he slips back into shadow. They'll say I'm a devil, but devils don't warn people, do they? Then he's gone. You walk the road back to your lodging as light cracks the horizon. Your thoughts are louder than the birdsong. There's something old beneath Brighthollow's cobbles, something that breathes in dreams and bleeds into prophecy. And it's not finished yet. The sun rises reluctantly over Brighthollow, its pale light slanting through greasy clouds like a candle behind cracked glass. You haven't slept. Not really. Echo's voice keeps ringing in your mind, the boy with no eyes who sees more than the living ever should. You spend the morning tracing news, quietly, carefully. The baker's apprentice confirms what you suspected. The barmaid with the candle tattoo died last night in the alley Echo showed you. The official story says mugging, no witnesses, her coin pouch untouched. She was smiling, the apprentice mutters, eyes a little too wide. Just smiling like she saw something nice. You don't answer. Because what could you say? That a blind child prophesied her death like he was reading tomorrow's almanac? You need answers. By midday, you've slipped into the undercroft beneath Brighthollow Cathedral, a vast maze of stone corridors once meant for storing wine, relics, and bones. Most of it is off limits now, sealed by rusting gates and time. But a half-bribed groundskeeper named Tobin owes you a favor, and tonight he leaves the south passage open accidentally. The air down here tastes like wet iron, old coins and older sins. You run your fingers along carved names, half erased by generations of reluctant monks, and then you find it. Inside, scrolls, dusty parchments tied with blue ribbons, and a seal, the old Brighthollow sigil, the crescent and single eye, same as the door Echo sat under, the forgotten crest, the one erased after the Great Purge. You sit cross-legged like Echo did and start reading. One document mentions, Subject 4, Visions manifest by 7th year, unresponsive to rites, lineage flagged. Another, older still, refers to the Watcher's line, a family said to dream death and speak truths no one else dares whisper. Your hands shake as you read the marginalia, too dangerous to destroy. Blood tied to sanctum. Must be erased quietly. Not killed. Erased. There's a name. Smudged nearly to ash. But you can make out the first half. Eller Dash. You freeze. Echo touched the cracked statue of Saint Hilarion, remember? You now realize what Echo truly meant by the name that binds me to the church. The boy is not just a seer. He's a descendant, maybe the descendant, of a saint who was buried alive beneath this very place. You take one parchment with you, careful not to disturb the others. The ink flakes like dead skin. Outside the bells toll, once, then twice, then silence. Odd. You make your way out, emerging into the main sanctuary, just as someone slams the cathedral doors shut behind you. A priest stands at the far end, not a young one, not one you recognize. His robes shimmer strangely in the candlelight, gold thread in unfamiliar patterns. He walks slowly, clasping something behind his back. You've been digging, he says calmly. Most people who dig too far in Brighthollow end up as part of the foundation. You try to speak, but your throat tightens. You're not sure why. Something in this man's presence is heavy. We've known about the child, he continues. He was a mistake, one we tried to bury with kindness. His smile doesn't reach his eyes, but now you've stirred up rot that should have stayed sealed. You ask him outright, is the boy from St. Hilarion's bloodline? He chuckles. A romantic notion. The truth is, the boy's dreams came from contact, not birth. He was left at the foot of the old reliquary, touched the bones, spoke in dead tongues the next night. Not blood, just contamination. Your breath catches. Echo never mentioned that. But something about the way this priest says it, contamination, sits wrong. Like he's selling a version of truth that's been whitewashed with holy water. The priest steps closer. You instinctively grip the parchment under your coat. I'm going to ask you once, he says. Hand over what you found, or the bells won't ring for you when they need to. You make a choice, not a brave one. You run. Out of the cathedral, down 2 levels of slick, moss-laced stone. You duck under a crumbled arch, past a row of forgotten saint statues, one of which seems to grin as you pass. You don't stop until you reach Eastfold again, chest heaving. Echo is already there, sitting on that same barrel, humming. Good, he says, turning his blank face toward you. You didn't let them have it. How did you know? He shrugs. Dreams come in waves. Sometimes I drown early. You show him the page. He doesn't touch it, but nods slowly. That one's true, he says. All of it. You ask him if he really touched the bones. I did, he admits. But they called to me, like a lullaby from a grave. He smiles, and now I see the truth they buried. I am blood, in a way. Dreams and saints both run red. You don't know what to believe anymore, but you know one thing. More people will die, because the dreams aren't stopping. Echo tilts his head again. Want to know who's next? You hesitate, then nod. He leans forward. His breath is cold. Someone you trust. And with that, the night folds around you again, like pages in a story no one dares finish. You sleep for the first time in days, or at least your body does. Your mind? Not so lucky. In your dream, Brighthollow stretches on forever, its alleys twisting into knots, its rooftops curving like ribs. The city breathes, and in the breath you hear laughter. High-pitched, childlike, but not Echo's. Then Echo appears, barefoot, arms outstretched, but his mouth is sewn shut. You wake to the sound of knocking. Not dream knocking, real, sharp, measured. You answer your door to find Tobin, the groundskeeper who helped you into the Undercroft. He looks pale, sweating, eyes darting like a cornered animal. They know, he whispers. You barely manage a word. Who? The Custodia. You blink. That's not real. Tobin laughs. Tell that to the man who followed me home with no shadow. Here's a quirky tidbit. In medieval secret societies, real or imagined, groups like the Custodes Umbrae, or Shadow Keepers, were said to guard holy truths too dangerous to be written down. Some claimed they didn't bleed when cut. Others said they didn't age. Most mainstream historians dismiss them as myth or monkish scare tactics. But not everyone. Tobin pulls something from his sleeve. A rosary. The beads aren't wood or bone. They're tiny, polished teeth. I took it from the bishop's study, he hisses. They're real. Baby teeth, hundreds of them in a velvet bag. He said they belonged to the dreamers. You step back. Tobin's hand tightens on your arm. You need to leave the city. Burn what you found. Let the boy go. But you already know that's not going to happen. You find Echo in the garden behind the apothecary. He's tracing symbols into the soil with a stick, circles within circles. You recognize some of them. You saw them etched on the old scrolls. Did you dream me again? You ask. He doesn't answer directly, just pats the dirt beside him. You sit. He touches the center of the drawn symbol and speaks, not to you, but to the earth. I see a girl in blue ribbons, he says. She's going to fall from the bell tower, and everyone will think it was her own fault. But she was pushed by someone with keys. He taps another ring in the pattern. A baby in the west quarter, sick for weeks, but not sick from plague, sick from touch. Something whispered to him from inside the chimney. It said the stars are watching. You shudder. How do you see this? Echo sighs. I don't. They do. I just listen. You wonder what they means, but part of you doesn't want to know. He gestures toward your coat. You still have the page? You nod. He closes his sightless eyes. Keep it close. It's bait. That night, you walk alone. Eastfold is empty again. Its lanterns lit, but flickering like they're afraid. You pass a monk you've never seen before. Robes too clean, smile too wide. Evening, he says. You nod, but something's off. His left foot drags. A glitch in the step. You've seen it before, in the cathedral's mural of the penitent saint, where the artist had painted the figure wrong. No shadow under the left leg. Your stomach turns. You don't look back. Instead, you duck into the old archivist's tower, abandoned after a fire a decade ago. The inside still smells of smoke and rotted leather. You climb, each creaking stair a prayer. At the top, you find what you're looking for, a ledger, charred but legible. And there, one name repeated, circled in red ink, Ilarion of the Nightmouth. Not a saint, a heretic. You read aloud, cast out from the circle for speech against the sun, claimed visions from the hollow star, executed beneath the tower. You stare at the ink. Executed. Then why the shrine? Why the relics? Because maybe the execution was symbolic, or failed, or faked. You read further. Child born from bones, marked by moonlight. The eyeless will carry the tongue of the forgotten god. You sit hard on the floor. Echo isn't just connected, he is the message. And someone has gone to terrible lengths to silence it. You race back through the city, thoughts pounding louder than your footsteps. You don't notice the figure behind you until it's too late. A cloth over your mouth, sharp breath, darkness. You wake in a stone chamber, lit by a single candle. Cold. Across from you, the priest from the cathedral. Robes now blood-stained. He places a bone knife on the table. Polished. Ritualistic. We're not murderers, he says. We're editors. You struggle. Nothing moves. The air is thick, like syrup. He explains almost kindly that Echo is scheduled for removal. It's not cruelty, he insists. It's mercy. He's breaking the world open. You force your voice through clenched teeth. Why? Why erase the truth? His smile dims, because the truth doesn't stop. Once it starts speaking, it drags the dead with it. He leans close. Dreams are doors, but what happens when the door forgets how to shut? You close your eyes, and then you hear it, humming, faint, Echo's lullaby. The candle flutters, the walls vibrate, the priest turns, suddenly pale, and the chamber grows cold as a tomb. The candle dies in a single breath. Not yours, not the priest's. Something unseen pulls the flame away, like a string being yanked into darkness. You feel it before you see it. The chill rolls in low, crawling across the stone floor in wisps. It's not wind, it's presence. The kind that makes your skin prickle and your heart forget how to count. The priest backs away from the table, bone knife forgotten, and then comes the whisper. Software hollow, spoken in the voice of someone you've never met but somehow miss terribly. It says, "The door is open." The stone behind the priest cracks, just a hairline fracture, but it runs from ceiling to floor like a scar waking up. The priest begins muttering in Latin, something about light and order and guardians, but his voice trembles and the words slip from his mouth like wet marbles. He doesn't believe them anymore, because standing behind him, no, emerging from the fracture is Echo. No shoes, no eyes, just the calm stillness of someone who's not here to argue. You shouldn't have caged him, the boy says. But the voice doesn't come from his mouth. It comes from the walls. The priest tries to run, but his shadow doesn't follow. It stays, frozen on the floor. Then it moves, without him, grabs his ankles, drags him, screaming into the crack as though it were a tunnel made of ink, and then silence. Echo turns to you. They sent dreams to him too once, he says. but he tried to cut them out. You don't ask what happened to the priest. The answer lies somewhere between theology and geology now. Here's a mainstream historical fact. Many medieval exorcisms weren't about demons in the religious sense. They were performed on people claiming to have visions. Sometimes the church called it divine madness, other times heresy. Either way, they believed silence cured everything. Echo holds out his hand. Let's go. You follow him through the cracked wall, now just an open archway into a forgotten corridor. You walk in silence, your boots echoing over crushed marble tiles and mossy roots. Lanterns flicker on without being lit. Eventually, the tunnel widens into a crypt. Not for the dead, but for the never alive. Statues of impossible saints, one with 7 mouths, one with no head but a crown floating above her neck. Symbols that look more like constellations than scripture line the walls. Echo stands before an altar, carved from petrified wood. This is where she was sealed, he whispers. She? He nods. The one who dreamed first, the hollow star. She wasn't a goddess. Not really. Just awake, when everyone else was still dust. You ask why they sealed her. Because she never slept, he replies. She saw too much, and she wanted company. Historians still argue whether certain heretical cults in the 13th century were actually suppressing ancient beliefs or accidentally preserving forgotten pre-Christian traditions. The line between God and ghost gets blurry when the manuscripts burn. Echo places the parchment you gave him on the altar. The ink begins to writhe, forming a new word, Sibilant. What does it mean, you ask? It's her name, he says, or what's left of it. He looks up at you. I need to leave soon, he says softly. She's waking, and I'm just her echo. You feel like the room tilts slightly. What do you mean leave? She needs a voice in the waking world, one that doesn't forget. You reach for him, but your hand stops at his shoulder. Solid, but cooling. I dreamed of myself last night, he says. And in the dream, I was already gone. You shake your head. Number, you're a child. I was, he says. Now I'm the story. He smiles, truly, peacefully, for the first time. But I can give you something. From his pocket, he pulls a single white stone. On it, the symbol from the parchment, the eye within a crescent. When you need to speak with her, he says, drop this into still water. She listens best through silence. You ask the only question you can muster. Why me? Echo laughs. Because you listened to me even when I made no sense. That's rarer than you think. The walls begin to tremble. A soft wind picks up. But there's no danger in it. It feels like breath, like someone sighing after centuries. You look down to ask him something else, but Echo is gone. Only the stone remains in your palm. Warm. You return to Brighthollow above ground as dawn threatens the horizon. The city is still, peaceful in that eerie just before the storm way. You walk the streets like someone who's misplaced something enormous. And then you hear it. Laughter. Children playing in the square. Life continuing as if nothing cracked, nothing whispered, nothing was dragged into stone. You pause near the statue of Saint Hilarion. The eye has been repaired. Poorly, you touch it. It blinks. Later that day, you visit the archivist's tower again. Everything's as you left it, except for the ledger. It's gone. In its place, a single page, to forget is mercy, to remember is fate. You fold it, tuck it into your coat, and descend the stairs. But you already know you won't sleep again tonight. There's a ripple in the city now. The dreams will come, not just to Echo, but to others. And someone will have to gather them. Listen. Sort truth from hallucination. You never thought it'd be you, but you're already dreaming, aren't you? The sun is out, but it feels dimmer. You walk through Brighthollow like someone haunting their own house. People go about their lives, trading wares in the morning market, arguing over bread weights, gossiping in low voices about a noblewoman's scandalous haircut. But underneath all that, under the cobbles and plaster and prayer bells, something listens. You feel it, a presence that wasn't here before, or maybe it always was, and now you can just hear it, like noticing a clock ticking only after midnight falls. You've started dreaming differently. Not about echo anymore, but like echo. Images instead of narratives. A rotted tree with glass leaves. A knight kneeling before an empty cradle. A staircase spiraling downward forever but getting brighter with each step. You wake with symbols on your arms, just faint impressions like sleep creases. But they match the altar. You're being marked. That would probably alarm most people. But in Brighthollow, folks tend to notice their doom only when it knocks. And knocks loudly. Here's a strange little fringe fact. In the 14th century Bohemia, people would leave bowls of milk on their windowsills, not for cats, but for dream thieves. These invisible spirits were said to steal nightmares, swallow them, and burp out omens. You're starting to suspect Brighthollow has its own version. Only here, the dreams don't get eaten. They get passed around like cursed letters. Back in your quarters, you stare at the white stone Echo gave you. Still smooth, still silent, but heavier now. You drop it into your wash basin. The water ripples, then stills. The reflection doesn't show your face. Instead, you see a hallway, flickering torchlight, rows of robed figures kneeling around a central altar where a single child sleeps on marble, eyes wide open, unblinking. You blink. The image fades. That night, you go to the bell tower, not for worship, for the girl in blue ribbons. Echo said she'd fall, or be pushed. You climb in silence. At the top, wind howls through arrow slits, sounding like laughter from a throat that never learned how. You crouch in shadow, watching. And there she is, perhaps 12 years old, blonde hair and braided loops, wearing the blue ribbons Echo described. She looks nervous, clutching a small book. You expect someone to appear and shove her, but no one comes. Instead, she sets the book on the ledge, steps up onto the stone rail, and raises her arms like she's flying. You rush forward just in time to grab her waist. She screams, kicks, claws, but you hold tight. Eventually, she sobs into your coat. "I thought the voice was my mother's," she gasps. "She told me to meet her in the air." You sit with her, holding her close until the tremors stop. Then you look at the book. It's not a diary, it's a ledger, the same kind Echo led you to. You flip through the pages, but this one has a new name added in fresh ink. Eyeless Child, Memory Transferred. And beneath it, in smaller script, next vessel identified, Maris of Bell Street. The girl. The prophecy didn't predict her death, it orchestrated it. But you interfered, you changed the story. And that's when you realize you're no longer a reader of dreams. You're an editor, and someone, or something, doesn't like that. You feel it before you hear it. A breath on your neck, ice cold and slow. You spin around. The figure is cloaked in raven feathers, face hidden behind a mirror mask. In one hand, a scroll sealed in wax. In the other, a branding iron shaped like Echo's sigil. You don't run. You ask. "What are you?" The voice that answers is many, layered, echoing through years. "We are the Custodia Somnia, the keepers of pattern. You've broken sequence." You stand your ground, so rewrite it. We do not write, we preserve. The branding iron glows. You take one step back. Then the girl, Maris, rises to her feet, eyes strangely clear. "She's awake now," she says, "and she's watching you." The mirror mask flickers. Then the figure vanishes. Just gone. You're left in the bell tower with a child who knows too much and a dream that just grew teeth. The next day, you return to the Undercroft, not to hide, but to study. You lay out everything. The parchment, the stone, the ledger, and the mirror Maris slipped into your pocket without realizing. It reflects nothing but candlelight and your pulse. You whisper into the room, "You want me to preserve? Then help me understand." No answer, but the pages begin to shift, not turning, reordering. The ledger reshuffles itself like a deck of cards. Names rise to the surface. And in the corner of one page, you see something that shouldn't be there. Your name, next to a date, today's. You don't breathe, then below it, "Dream not yet complete." You look up. The mirror now shows a single eye, watching, waiting. You don't sleep that night. How could you? Your name is in the ledger, not carved in stone, but penciled, as if fate is considering you, testing the ink before it dries. You sit by the window, watching Brighthollow sleep. The lanterns flicker in alleyways. Far below, a dog barks once, then nothing. Even the city seems afraid to dream tonight. You try to outwait the dawn, but something catches your eye. On the opposite rooftop, a figure. Small, still, child-sized. You know the silhouette before your heart has time to panic. Echo. Only, it isn't him. Because when the clouds slide away from the moon, you see the child's face, identical to Echo's, but smiling wide, like a doll. And its eyes are stitched shut. The stitched child lifts a hand and points directly at you, then vanishes. You sprint downstairs, boots loud on the stone. When you reach the rooftop, there's no trace, but in the center of the tiles, carefully laid out in chalk, a staircase drawn spiraling inward. You don't touch it, not yet, because tonight, you've decided to try something Echo never could. You're going to trace the dream back to its source. Here's a mainstream fact. Medieval dream theory was a huge deal, so much so that bishops and physicians wrote treatises classifying dreams into categories. Some were divine, others natural, and some, like your current experience, were considered phantasms, false images sent by demons. And the only cure? Vigilance. And occasionally, cabbage juice. No joke. You skip the cabbage and instead head to the chapel archives. By day, it's all candles and incense. By night, the building hums. You search the oldest folios, the ones chained to their shelves. Illuminated margins stare at you with golden eyes. You find references to the Eyeless vessel across 3 centuries of conflicting accounts. Always a child, always blind, always dreaming of deaths that came true. But one marginal note stands out, in Latin, scratched in a different hand. The vessel is not born but inherited. Memory passes like sickness. It seeks the same blood. You read it twice, 3 times. Blood. That's when you remember the ink that moved on the altar. That wasn't just prophecy. That was a blooded script. In Echo, he bled on the page without bleeding at all. You rush to the apothecary. Break in, honestly. You're not proud of it. In the back is a tincture called Truth Root, bitter as old boots, but used to trace heritage when boiled under a new moon. Which, of course, is tonight. You prepare it, fingers shaking. Drip a single drop of your blood in. If the tincture turns blue, it means you're kin to the dreaming line. The bowl hisses, turns blue, then black, then boils over. You wipe the mess off your hands, but your mind's already on fire. You're not just in the story, you're of the story. And someone has been trying to wake you up to it. That night, the stitched child returns. But this time it's standing in your room, between you and the door. No footsteps, no sound, just arrival. You don't run, you sit. "Are you Echo?" you ask. It shakes its head slowly. "I am the part he couldn't carry," it says. "The memory too jagged, the scream he swallowed." You nod, because this makes sense now. Echo wasn't whole. He was a fracture given form. "What do you want?" The child walks forward, lays a stitched finger on your forehead, and then... You see, you're not in your body anymore. You're looking down from the chapel rafters at a birth. A woman screaming, a midwife praying. And the child that emerges has no eyes. The midwife recoils. "He's one of them," She whispers. The mother weeps, not in fear, but in sorrow. I dreamt he would be, she says, and I still bore him. The child grows, moves, dreams. You recognize Echo's voice in the night, whispering to shadows, drawing stars in dirt. But you also see another boy, slightly older, brown hair, same hands, same blood. You. You're not Echo's protector. You're his brother, and you forgot. The stitched child steps back. Now you understand why you felt drawn to the ledger, why the dreams obey you, why the eye watched you not with suspicion, but hope. You are the next vessel, not because you were chosen, but because you were left behind. The stitched child begins to unravel, threads loosening into air. Its final whisper tickles your spine. She'll speak to you now, just don't ask questions you fear answered. You wake up with the mirror in your lap. This time it shows not your reflection, but hers. The hollow star. A woman made of stitched light and silence. No face, no body, just awareness. And when she speaks, you understand. Not with ears, but with memory. Every ancestor, every sleeper, every dreamer who ever carried the burden of truth. They're in your blood. And now it's your turn. You close the mirror. The room is silent. But inside your chest, the dreams begin again. Only now, they're waiting for your ink. You don't walk through Brighthollow anymore. You glide. Not literally, of course. Let's not get too ghostly yet. But something's shifted. People no longer meet your gaze. Doors creak shut a little faster when you pass. Even the pigeons on the cathedral spire give you a wider berth. And pigeons? They don't judge anyone. The stitched child is gone. The mirror is quiet. But your head is full. Every night, new dreams arrive. Less like memories now, more like instructions. Prophetic sequences, names, locations, outcomes. And they're all blank at the end, as if the dreams are waiting for you to decide how they end. Welcome to editorial control over fate. You don't want it. But here we are. One name keeps returning. Fray Matthias. You recognize it from one of the church's first inquiries into forbidden rites. Exiled decades ago. No public record of death. But the dream shows you his hand. Old, veined, tattooed with 7 overlapping eyes, slipping a piece of cloth into a fire. The cloth bears your family's sigil. You've got questions. Which means it's time for another uncomfortable journey into Brighthollow's folds. The quiet quarter. You slip through the outer gates disguised as a delivery clerk. The bells toll once behind you, though no one pulls the ropes. The place is a maze of gardens and dead-end paths, each overgrown with wild thyme and sunless moss. But your dreams guide you well. You find him sitting on a stone bench, eyes closed, lips moving without sound. Fray Matthias. Still alive, his robes are threadbare. His hands tremble. But his aura is unmistakable, like standing next to a fireplace made of silence. You sit beside him, quietly. He speaks before you can. You've met her. Not a question. You nod. He sighs. Then I owe you an apology. We were meant to protect the line. Instead, we tried to erase it. He tells you the truth. Centuries ago, the church discovered the dreamers. Children born blind, dreaming deaths days before they happened. They called them blessed mirrors, believing their dreams were sent by angels. But the dreams became too accurate, too precise. Political assassinations, plague outbreaks. Even the Pope's death was predicted, hours before it happened. That's when the church panicked. They reclassified the dreamers as heretics, claimed their visions were demonic mimicry, ordered mass purges. Records were scrubbed, children relocated, families torn apart. But a few of the older ones, like Fray Matthias, knew better. I helped one escape, he admits. She bore twin sons. I marked one to carry the memory. The other, I tried to keep blank, safe. He turns his head toward you, though he can't quite look you in the eyes. You were meant to live a quiet life, Aldrich. There it is. The name no one's spoken to you in weeks. Not brother, not seeker, just Aldrich. You laugh, not loudly, just enough to keep the tears from rising. Didn't really pan out that way. He chuckles, bitter and soft, number it never does. Then, with great effort, he reaches into his robe and pulls out a scrap of cloth. It's blackened at the edges, but intact. The sigil of your family still visible. Part sun, part spiral. He places it in your hand. You'll need this when you reach the chamber. You raise an eyebrow. What chamber? He leans close. There's a place beneath Brighthollow that even the city doesn't know it owns. A forgotten archive of voices, recorded in wax, in blood, in silence. The original dream route. And that's when you understand. The dreams aren't just passing through you. They're stored. You're not a mirror. You're a library. Fray Matthias shudders once, breath hitching. And then he's gone. Peacefully, as if that single confession was the only thing tying him to this world. You lay him gently back on the bench. Fold his arms. Whisper a prayer in a tongue you don't recognize until it leaves your mouth. And then you leave the quiet quarter. You know where you must go next? Here's your quirky tidbit. Some medieval scribes believed that certain books could only be read at night because the ink used was made from crushed poppy and raven feather, substances thought to awaken memory in darkness. You're starting to believe they were onto something, because when you return to the Undercroft with Fray Matthias's cloth, the stone altar shifts, not with noise, not with magic, just quietly slides aside, revealing a spiral stairwell carved into the earth. No torchlight, no railing, just a deep breath and the certainty that you've come this far. You descend. The air grows colder, heavier, not in temperature, but in meaning. You reach a door, no keyhole, no handle, just a single shallow depression. You press the cloth into it. The door sighs open. Beyond it, silence. A vast chamber, not a room, a vault, lined with alcoves. Each contains a vessel, some urns, some skulls, some strange black glass like the mirror Echo gave you. And above them all, a mural. Painted in blood and ochre. It shows you, but not as you are. As you were, a child, blindfolded, mouth open in a scream, and stitched across your chest, the sigil of your family. This is the dream route, and it remembers. You don't speak as you step into the dream route chamber, not because you're afraid, though let's be honest, you're terrified, but because something older than fear tells you silence is the only respectful currency down here. Each step echoes like a question in an empty cathedral. Your hand brushes one of the vessels, cold, smooth, heavy with an echo you can't name. Inside, you swear you hear a voice trying to form a sentence, but never quite making it. Like a dream you almost remember. You trace the mural again. The figure that is you, blindfolded, screaming. But there's something new. The sigil stitched into the figure's chest has changed since you last saw it. A fresh mark has appeared beneath the spiral sun. A quill. No ink, as if the mural is waiting for your next move. You walk deeper, past the glass mirrors that hum with remembered names. In one alcove sits a basin filled with a red, shimmering liquid. Not blood, not quite. More like memory that hasn't solidified yet. There's an inscription above it, scratched in jagged Latin. She who dreams first remembers last. And below that, only he who writes shall survive. So you take the quill, you dip it in the basin, and you begin to write, not in your own voice. That's gone, submerged in the tide of ancestral memory. What comes out is older, more fluid, less sentence, more current. You write, the child who dreams becomes the man who remembers. The man who remembers becomes the hand that records, and the hand that records decides. When you stop, the chamber trembles, not violently, more like an old library stretching its limbs after centuries asleep. You've activated something. From the far wall, another mural begins to unfurl. Yes, unfurl. As if it had been waiting beneath the surface of the stone, dormant. This one shows Echo, eyes closed, hands raised. Around him are scenes you've already lived: the ledger, the stitched child, the mirror, and then one final image: a cathedral burning, but not just any cathedral. Your cathedral, the spire collapsing, smoke rising like a crown. And at the center of it all, a faceless woman, her hands extended in benediction. The hollow star, your pen slips from your fingers. Because you understand now, the dreams weren't warnings. They were scripts, instructions, not for you to follow, but for you to write. And the next chapter begins with fire. Mainstream fact time. The idea that monks and scribes could predict the future wasn't so fringe in the Middle Ages. Monastic scriptoria weren't just for copying Bibles, they were seen as centers of spiritual insight. Some orders believed that divine prophecy flowed more easily through those who copied sacred text daily. Pen meets parchment meets providence. But this goes further. You're not copying anything. You're editing. You make your way back up the spiral staircase, the quill still warm in your pocket. Outside, dawn stains the sky with uneasy gold. You don't go straight home. Instead, you walk the long perimeter of the city, watching Brighthollow stir from its haunted slumber. And it hits you. No one else knows what's coming. The cathedral will burn. You saw it. And now you can choose how that unfolds. Or if it does, that's when the dreams shift again. You no longer dream in fragments. Now you see the city like a map, veins and arteries of cobbled streets, the dreams of every citizen glinting like lanterns. But one light burns too bright. The eye of Brighthollow, the church. You see it for what it is now, not a sanctuary, but a machine designed to crush aberrations and rewrite lineage. And it's afraid of you. Has been. Since the first blind dreamer whispered too loud in her sleep, and now they know you found the dream route. You don't have much time. Echo left clues. The stitched child warned you. Fray Matthias bought you a window. You use it. You return to the ledger room, the one where the names rearrange themselves. You touch the ink again, this time not as a witness, but a scribe. A new name writes itself across the page. Aldrich of the Unseen Line. Beneath it, the final author. So much for humility. You flip through the pages, death dates, birth notes, disappearances, and you find what you need, a future entry penned in invisible ink that blooms under your fingers. On the longest night of the year, the cathedral will fall. But whether it falls in fire, in flood, or in forgiveness, depends on the choice of one who remembers. You close the book. Now you know when, and you still don't know if it's worth trying to stop. Because here's the great scholarly debate. Historians still argue whether prophecy erases choice or simply offers a harder one. If you know the bridge is going to collapse, do you still walk across it to save someone on the other side? Or do you set fire to the bridge yourself, just to feel like you had a say? The stitched child didn't answer that question. The hollow star hasn't either. Looks like you'll have to. You spend the next day preparing. No swords, no cloaks, just ink, the quill, and a single sheet of blank vellum. And as the sun sets, you make your way toward the cathedral. You're going to write one more dream, not a vision of doom, but a test to see if memory can create mercy. You stand beneath the spire of the Brighthollow Cathedral, vellum tucked inside your coat, the quill nestled close to your ribs like a relic. The sun has barely slipped beneath the horizon, but the night is already listening. You can feel it, leaning in, breathless, like a child at the edge of a bedtime story. Tonight is the longest night, not just by the calendar's reckoning, but by fate's design, the moment the dreams have been inching toward, like chess pieces moving into final formation. The city around you slumbers uneasily. Lights flicker behind drawn curtains. Doors have been bolted earlier than usual. Even the street cats seem nervous, darting from shadow to shadow like whispers avoiding eavesdroppers. You step into the cathedral, alone. The great wooden doors groan, not with resistance, but anticipation, like even they know what's about to unfold. Inside, Nothing's changed. And yet everything feels rewritten. Candles flicker along the nave. The statue of Saint Regulus glowers down at you with that same hollow-eyed piety you've always loathed. The air is thick with incense, but not the comforting kind. This is old, sour, like prayers gone rancid. You walk to the altar. You do not kneel. Instead, you unroll the vellum, dip the quill, and begin to write the final dream. You write of a fire, but only a small one, just enough to melt the lies away. You write of the hollow star appearing, not in wrath, but in warning. You write of truth, not elegant or convenient, but real, scrawled in the handwriting of someone who has finally stopped running. You write of a child, blind, afraid, but still dreaming. And you write of a man who chose not to light the match, even though the dream begged him to. And when you're done, you place the vellum on the altar. And wait. Nothing happens at first. But then, a tremble. Not in the floor, not in the building, but in your head. A pressure behind your eyes, a heat behind your ribs. And the voice returns. You presume to overwrite. It's not angry, just disappointed. But you respond aloud. I was taught to overwrite. By you. The room goes cold. Candles gutter and die. And from the far side of the nave she appears. The hollow star. Her face is not monstrous. It is not beautiful. It is void, a mask of unbeing. Her robes ripple like a tapestry underwater. And she walks slowly, deliberately, until she's standing across the altar from you. You hold your ground. She doesn't speak. Not with words. Instead, her hand hovers over the vellum. And then she laughs. A single, breathless sound, neither cruel nor kind, just amused. She touches the page, and the vellum burns. But only around the edges. The center remains. Your words remain. Approved. The dream remains. She leans forward, whispers, "Then remember it, all of it." And with that, she vanishes. Not into smoke or light, just gone. The candles relight themselves. The cathedral exhales. You stagger back. Not from fear, not from injury, but from weight. The weight of all the dreams, all the futures, all the versions of you that might have lit the match. And you realize the fire was never literal. It was choice, the kind that consumes. You walk out of the cathedral as the first light of morning slices across the cobblestones. The city awakens, none the wiser. But you know, the stitched child will never appear again. Echo's mirror is silent. Fray Matthias sleeps, and you keep walking. Back into Brighthollow, back into the world. But now, with every step, you carry the library inside you. You are the dream root. You are the script. And you've chosen to write mercy, at least this time. And now, the story fades. The cathedral behind you is still standing, its spire brushing the morning sky like a charcoal line across parchment. The sun rises slowly, spilling gold over Brighthollow's rooftops, softening the edges of everything it touches. You breathe in, the scent of baked bread from a nearby oven. The distant cry of a fishmonger setting up his stall. The rhythmic clop of hooves on cobblestone. Normal things. Safe things. The weight in your chest doesn't vanish, but it settles, becomes part of you. Like a stone at the bottom of a deep pond. Present, but no longer pulling you under. You sit on a bench beside the river. You watch the light ripple across the surface, and for a moment, just a moment, you believe in stillness. And maybe, just maybe, tonight you'll sleep without dreams. Or if the dreams return, maybe they'll be yours. The city lives. You live. The story continues. But not tonight. Tonight, we rest. So wherever you are, be it in a city of stone, a house with creaky floorboards, or curled up beneath a blanket that smells faintly of lavender, know this. The darkness never wins completely. Now, close your eyes. Let your breath deepen and drift. We'll meet again, Good night.